Welcome back to Cheche, the program where opinion counts. Education Minister and Mboni MP Mutula Kilonzo is our guest today. And we're talking education, we're talking politics. And sir, I'm curious, did you see your reassignment to the education portfolio as a demotion, having come from such a high-profile ministry as Justice and Constitutional Affairs?
Not at all. My work at Justice was done. I had facilitated a new constitution. I had completed all the bills that my successor is working on. And to be honest with you, education is the largest ministry in the country in terms of even budget itself, personnel. You can imagine the reason you see so many reactions, nearly 300,000 teachers, and I'm looking for 70,000 more. The number of children, 14.5 million children, and every day you wake up knowing that these people don't have a voice. If you don't talk for them, even if it is on a miniskirt, they have nobody to speak for them.
But obviously, take it, Mutula, be honest about it. You enjoyed yourself more when you were in justice, because that's your really professional line as well.
On the contrary,
I
was being threatened. I used to get threats almost 3 days a week. In justice, I've only ended up with one threat. That girl who is now in court. But in justice, I used to get threats on a regular basis. It's an incredible ministry, and I am hoping that the next president will decide restructure it so that it doesn't appear that the minister is doing something of his own, a personal thing. I had a lot of fun in justice. Trust me, to be able to facilitate a new constitution and the new laws is not a joke. There were times, and there are still times, when I think perhaps, Mutula, why don't you just go and like Hillary Clinton and take it easy? But Makueni people are calling. So, education, I'm dealing with the youngest child, 0 to 18, professors. There are more professors in my ministry than you can possibly imagine, and they are always debating. So me, I'm enjoying myself.
You don't think this was a result of your strident opposition to Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto contesting the presidency, given the charges they're facing at the International Criminal Court?
Politics is about perception, and the perception of the public is that that is the case. And if you consider that my successor has been, until recently, a buddy of Uhuru, I suspect that was the reason for my transfer. But I have no regrets.
But you opposed the diplomatic missions that your chairman,
party leader. Of course.
But your party leader,
of course,
was you publicly opposed that.
What my docket was law, and what he was doing was a contradiction of the law.
How is that? I mean, your docket. This was a government. You were a minister in that government.
Oh no!
The president is the one who has assigned your party leader.
Please allow me
this assignment.
No! Allow me. I've never understood that you are in government so that you follow blindly. You accept whatever is done, you become a sycophant. And if you want me to be a sycophant, you will have to look for another Mutula. And therefore, if I find you are, because under Article 2, sub-Article 6 of the Constitution, Kenya ratifies a treaty, it becomes Kenyan law. So therefore, if you are running around saying we want deferral, and I know you are wasting public funds, I tell you, Allah, don't you remember that even when I pushed my country to adopt a law for a local tribunal, and plans were made to kill that law, I walked out of Parliament and called on the President and the Prime Minister to resign. And I have no apology. For the simple reason, I knew what was going to happen. I could see the events that are happening now, and I can tell you what is going to happen in the next 10 years or so when these trials begin. So therefore, I take these positions from the perspective of my training, my experience, my knowledge, my skills. I have studied inside the classroom international law, and I know what the ICC is all about. Most of the people talking about it think that it is Mutunga's court, think that it is Makandara court. It isn't. So therefore, I tell you the way it is. Luckily for me, I keep on telling you, I told you so.
But Mr. Waziri, when you talk about psychophancy, people see you as Saul who became Paul. That's what they think. They think you are...
Can you use English? What are you calling me?
Saul turned Paul. You went through the road to Damascus.
You mean the biblical people?
Yes. You
on
changed
the road
to
Damascus.
a sycophant of Moi. associating with Moi and being his lawyer and hobnobbing with him. And in fact, when lawyers, the Law Society and the ICJ were calling for multi-party, you and the friend Jambo, you are some of the people who are completely opposed to that. I remember having attended a conference in Naivasha, and it was organized by ICJ, and we were completely opposed to multi-party.
Don't you think I was right?
And
Don't you think I was right with the confusion that you now have with multi-party democracy? You are
you used to agree with Moi that
no,
multi-party
I was saying in order to introduce multi-party democracy properly, you must do the things that I did in justice. I was saying you must develop the laws for political parties, elections laws and so on. I was not opposed to multi-party democracy. I wish you knew.
But we were against everybody. Everybody was at that conference. You and Ojambo. You're totally completely different.
But right now, even on the ICC, everybody else is against my position, isn't it?
Not everybody.
You know, there's a famous saying which you are well aware of. It says, if something is right, it is right even if everybody else is against it. And even if something is wrong, it is wrong even if everybody else is
Actually, we're
supporting
mixing up issues, because the question is, were you ever anti-democracy? Because now you're singing from the rooftops and presenting yourself as a reformer, yet your political past shows that you didn't really care for democracy.
But you know, if you choose to be unfair to me, that is all right. I accept it. The question is, was I a public servant? I was Mzee Moi's personal lawyer, giving legal advice. And you do understand what a personal lawyer does. If he gives personal advice, he can't also make it public. So therefore, you do not know, and you cannot know, what advice I used to give.
So are you trying to tell us that privately you advised Moi to go for multipartism, and publicly you opposed those people who are actually campaigning for the same multipartism?
You would be very surprised. My good friend Franklin Bett, if you were to call him, he would tell you I had even drafted a constitution for Moi's government, a multi-party democratic constitution.
How is it that we don't know about this? Because it seems really, looking at your record, that you benefited from one system, and once you saw that that system was changing, you quickly adjusted yourself to benefit from the new status quo.
That's the way the person...
I sincerely can't help you if you don't want to do research. My recommendation is...
Okay, when you say we don't want to do research, hang on.
You do a bit of research.
No, hang on. Let's be clear.
No, excuse me. Please, you must allow me to tell you. Go and look at the committee of the late Professor Saitoti on this issue of changing Kenya to a multi-party democratic state. Go and look at my recommendations. In fact, upon making my recommendations to his committee, he went to the president and said, your lawyer has advised that we amend Section 2A. That is when he was removed from the vice presidency for 1 year. And everybody else who was in his committee ducked and ran away. So therefore, you have to do research before you can confront somebody like me. But otherwise, then you emerge as though, you emerge as though you are in a pigeonhole, and you are using that pigeonhole to roll it over on me. You'll be surprised. I have been, and will always remain, an advocate of inclusiveness, democracy, transparency, and so on. And
how is it then that your peers...
How do you account for the fact that when you became MP, for a long time your salary was going because of taxes?
So, I mean, you know, as a businessman, surely you know that the two things that a human being cannot escape is death and taxes. I would rather have an issue of income tax than an issue of no income. So therefore, the income tax is a matter that happens day to day, year to year. So therefore, if you are, for that matter...
In democratic countries, if you don't pay tax, it's a serious offense.
Oh, but surely, that is if you evade tax.
Which you did.
But, what evidence have you got?
Well, that's why they were cutting my salary.
No.
That's why you couldn't get a salary.
Let me tell you what happens. You make 10,000 shillings. And you declare you have made 10,000 shillings. Income tax decides they want to say that you made 20,000 shillings. You dispute with them, and hence that is the reason there is a process for those disputes, so that you can continue telling income tax you are wrong. But I have never been, and if you have evidence, you have to table it. Otherwise, you're being unfair to pretend that is an issue of income tax evasion. That is when, in other countries, you would be found You saw even Romney the other day refused to release his tax records and his income tax.
Waziri, I'm not personally satisfied with your response to your previous performance or stance during Kanu's time and the new Mutula Kilonzo, who is passing out as a reformer. People who have known you, and I have followed you from the days, from the 90s, when you were a prominent member of the LSK, which of course you're still a member. You had a strident position against those who advocated for multipartyism. You in fact led a team of lawyers. Yes, I'm telling you from personal experience.
There was a meeting at Safari Park where Kinakiraitu and Reverend Bode was moving for multiparty. You and Steve Mwanesi, who was the Kanu boss then, you are opposed to it.
Yeah, but
that meeting at Kasarani.
But you see, but one of the things that I cannot appreciate from you, and if I don't satisfy you, I apologize. I can only do the best I can.
Yes.
How did I facilitate Article 4 in the Constitution? What sort of this soul turned to Paul? Yeah. Where was my discovery? Where is the road to Damascus? I've never left, and you are forgetting Mutegi, because I was with you. Yeah. Bomas 1, 2, 3. Was I not with you? At that time, I was still the shadow Attorney General for Kanu in the 9th Parliament. What position did I take about multi-party democracy? In Bomas, I was out there. And you remember in the end,
this is yesterday. We're talking about the 90s, the hectic 1991, 19...
When people were being tortured, when people were being sent into exile because of their political stance. When your peers had to leave the country for fear of their personal safety, when they were being blacklisted and stopped from practicing because of their political views.
And you led a team, you are the front of a team that was called the Lawyers Committee for Kanu, so to speak.
No, there was nothing of the sort.
You
are forgetting that during this period, and I'm happy you raise it because it's about time to either bury it or grow it.
Yeah, right.
You'll be surprised at that point. The Honorable Attorney General was the Attorney General for Kenya, and he was the legal advisor to the government. And like in all cases where a party, like even now, takes a lawyer, you either accept the instructions of the party or you don't, or you give legal advice depending on what your client is insisting on, or better still, once you give the legal advice, you keep quiet. You cannot publicize the legal advice that you have given to your client if your client refuses. So the best person to ask what position Mutula took would be either Franklin Bett, who was controller of State House, or
no,
for
but
that
isn't
matter,
that unfair on the
Moore.
public, which had no access to that information? Yeah, and the information they had access to was the Mutula who was public, who was speaking with his mouth, leave alone advising secretly, which we cannot ascertain. And publicly, you actually led the wing that went to court to gag the Law Society
on
of Kenya.
On the contrary.
Okay,
in fact, one of the litigants was the former Deputy Chief Justice, Nancy Barasa.
Yes,
you didn't ask her the questions when
you
made her Chief Justice?
She was. But that wing of the Law Society that was opposed to the Law Society, even advocating for pluralism, you were on the other side of Kanu. The question is, people think that after serving the last regime, the Kanu regime, so well, efficiently, lending the best of your brain to the system, which oppressed Kenyans, you again, when that victory has been delivered, are on the other side carrying the flag.
But again,
how do you explain
but again, Bwana Makali, you are being unfair.
Am I?
Yeah, you're being very unfair.
Show me how.
Let me show you how. Kenya had an Attorney General, the person who sits in the cabinet, to advise on the Constitution, to advise on issues. Mutula is recruited by Kanu. They pay my bills, and by Mzee. I give them advice. I have no avenue for making public the advice I've given them.
But we're looking at your public record, not your private advice.
What about those meetings which you attended? ICJ meetings, LSK meetings, and I give you an example, two. One in Avasha, the other one at Safari Park, where you and Mwenesi were completely opposed to multipartyism.
Do me a favor. Even Mwenesi now is an advocate. you can go and ask him the questions. If you go to a special meeting of the Law Society or a meeting of journalists, are you blocked from expressing your opinion?
No.
Right. Now, and when you express those opinions, are those opinions cast in stone? Only a fool doesn't change his mind. And that's why you... No, you are not saying that. You are not saying that. You are using the expression of so turned Paul.
Yeah, I've told
now, and he ended up writing the greater part of the New Testament, if you follow the point I'm making. Now, this is so whom you are so categorical of the 90s and 70s, gave you a new constitution, giving you the right
no, that's not accurate.
Did you change? That's what we're asking.
No. As a matter of fact, luckily for me, I cannot pretend to you that I changed. I remain the same person.
Okay.
And my views remain the same.
Right.
It's only that my views at the time, other than the ones you saw being expressed in private meetings of a society in which I'm a member, the advice that I gave to my clients, you cannot have access to it because all my clients are still alive and there is a client advocate
privileged information.
Yeah.
We have to take a break on that point. They've been harassing us and we are running out of time. And we do need to talk about your ambition to become the Makueni senator when we return. You're watching Cheche, the program where opinion counts. We are speaking to the Education Minister and MP for Mboni, the Honorable Mutula Kilonzo.